Well, good morning everyone. I'm Swanström. I'm the chairman of the board of ISDP, and I have the privilege of trying to moderate this event. Normally, what ISDP does is to invite experts from all around the globe. This morning, we believe we have very good in-house expertise on the topic of the day. We have Dr. Sangsoo, and we have the ISDP director, Niklas, Swanström. They will start, and then we will, as usual, have the Q&A session. It strikes me that a topic like today's might invite you to give lengthy speeches. I hope you will refrain from that. If there are some too long speeches on the topic, I will have the privilege of trying to make those interventions shorter. With that said, please.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. First, I'd like to give an overview of recent North Korean nuclear development in terms of some new trends or change when it comes to recent North Korea's nuclear tests. I think there are mainly 4 changes. First, I would say technology development. After the 4th test, North Korea announced it was very successful H-bomb test. However, U.S. and international experts didn't agree it was hydrogen test. Even they said it was not more powerful than previous tests. Actually, their assessment was just based on the magnitude weight, and they said the latest test was 5.1. But I think this magnitude could be very smaller than expected, because if North Korea conducted the test in a very deep tunnel, the detection, the magnitude could be very small, or North Korea used a small amount of plutonium or uranium, then its magnitude could be smaller. But at least I think there was some progress in North Korea's nuclear technology, because the North Korean's national media, KCNA, they said the primary objective of this test was to verify the technology for the H-bomb. Actually, it was exactly their expression was it was to verify the nuclear technology for miniaturize the H-bomb. I think this means North Korea focused on the scientific value to make H hydrogen bomb, rather than focusing on showing the power level of explosion. And North Korea also conducted missile test on February 7th, and North Korea also made some progress in missile technology. Through this missile test, they indicated the range of missile became wider the experts said it can target within 1,200 kilometers. Can cover actually mainland U.S. And on the other hand, they could make progress on the smaller size of warhead. Actually, this time they uploaded 200 kilograms of satellite. But last time, actually, the missile test was in 2012. They put 100 kilograms. So it is 2 times heavier this time. So I think obviously there is technology developing, improvement, and they will continue in the future. And it's not a matter of issue, maybe it's a matter of time. North Korea could have advanced technology targeting U.S., mainland U.S. And the second change is maybe North Korea conducted nuclear test first, then missile test later. But the previous test, actually the missile test was first and nuclear test later. I was thinking why they changed this order. I think in order to maximize their political impact, actually, because nowadays North Korea informs their schedule for nuclear missile test to International Maritime Organization. Then people could predict when the nuclear test will. So they conducted nuclear test by conducting very certain test. So this is one of some new change. And the third one is, I think, consistency. Actually, North Korea conducted in total 4 times nuclear test. And there is roughly 3 years intervals. First one was 2006, second was 2009, and third 2013, and the last one was 2016. So it seems to me North Korea, they don't care of any international reaction, sanctions, and pressure. Just they going until they will be a nuclear state. And the last one, I think, their demand is increasing as their nuclear technology is improving. For example, the previous negotiation, the peace treaty was endable in return for denuclearization. But this time, North Korea requested the peace treaty should be first as a precondition to discuss North Korea's nuclear issue. So, therefore, there are 4 changes or trends. First is the nuclear technology is improving. The second was the consistency, and the third one was the nuclear test first, and then the missile test. And the last one is their demand is higher than before. So that's the overall my assessment about nuclear development in China.
Thank you, Sangsoo. Would you like to carry on?
Yeah, just to Importantly enough, I think Sangsoo and I agree to many of the points. But I think it's important to also look at the technical thing about being a hydrogen bomb. It was simply not a double detonation, so it cannot have been a hydrogen bomb in a nuclear sense. It can be a hybrid bomb, but it could be something else. But it's the same with the missile tests. We talk about the missile test, we talk about the satellite test. Maybe that's less important. What is important is the intention of the North Koreans, and the intention is very clear. They are determined to develop hydrogen weapons. They are determined to continue their nuclear program. And as Sangsoo was saying, there's very little we can do to prevent that. North Korea, whether we like it or not, has emerged as a de facto nuclear power. Doesn't mean we can recognize them as one, but I think we have to realize the reality of it. And we do see a number of challenges come up here. Something we can discuss more in detail, but the geopolitical climate has changed fundamentally now in Northeast Asia. We see closer military cooperation with South Korea and the United States. We're going to see a very different geopolitical scenario in Northeast Asia. With THAAD, the missile defense system, will have to be implemented in South Korea. Unfortunately, that's going to be perceived as something very negative, and it is very negative toward China. Generally, actually, to be China is probably the biggest loser in this situation, because a lot of the South Korean-Chinese relations that was very much improved is now taking 2 steps backwards. So we're seeing a geopolitical tension in the region. And of course, people are always asking China to do more. The question is, what can China actually do? North Korea is determined to develop nuclear weapons. And it's not going to be influenced unless we put heavy pressure on them. And if we do that, China will be on the losing end as well. So in a sense, China is on the losing end if it doesn't put pressure on North Korea, and if it does. But also, what we also see is I think we're going to see much more isolation of North Korea. North Korea will be suffering from increased boycotts. That's something we need to do. Kaesong has been closed down. The Americans are pushing for much stricter sanctions, very closely to the Iranian style sanctions. And what we see now is really increasingly less opportunities to influence the North Koreans. So what we see is a nuclear program where we can't really influence it, we don't know where they are, but we do know the intention, and intention, of course, is extremely problematic. And here we come in for on the risks. What are the risks that comes up now with North Korea? Well, first of all, the most obvious one is the military capacity, and as Sangsoo was saying, I think we can expect a nuclear test very soon again, or relatively soon. Of higher magnitude, and probably with a more potent hydrogen combination, or a pure hydrogen bomb. So there's a capacity that is very much developing on the North Korean side. And the risk, of course, is very minor for the United States or for Europe, but of course for the regional security, this is going to be devastating. And then one worry, of course, proliferation. If you develop a nuclear program in North Korea, is that only for the North Koreans, or will we see a proliferation of the technology to other parts of the world? And this is something we need to consider. It might not happen, but the fact remains that we know very little about the nuclear program. We know very little who's in charge. We know very little about how this is going to be used. So this is a concern, especially on the American side, and I think that that's justifiable concern. So we're setting up a situation that where the tension that has come up the last few months and weeks is probably going to be much more severe. We also have the military exercises now between South Korea and the United States. That's going to increase tension. And I think it's also likely that we will see a number of provocations from US RK side as well as the DPRK side. And when I say that, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily an intention to provoke, but it will be perceived in that way from the other side. So for me, what we're looking at is an extremely, due to this missile and nuclear test, we're looking at an increasingly unstable situation in Northeast Asia. And the unstable situation plays really much in the hands of the North Koreans. The North Koreans has a virtually carte blanche to continue the nuclear program. And that's, of course, no coincidence. I hear a lot when people say that the North Korean leadership is erratic, stupid. Nothing could be more wrong. This is well planned, this is very organized, and I think that they've been very successful in the strategy in developing this nuclear program. But I will stop there, and we can start with a bit of a discussions regarding this. And I should say that Sangsoo, of course, is the Korean expert, and I'll take care more about the regional aspects.
If I may start by asking Sangsoo some sort of a technical question. Is the technological capacity of the North Koreans today totally indigenous?
Actually, I would say that it's still developing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
there is no outside help wherever that would come.
Actually, if I
What
I know is the first nuclear technology. There are many speculations. First was the technology came from Pakistan.
Yeah.
The Dr. Khan.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, in the 1970s, between North Korea and Pakistan, there was some cooperation, the nuclear cooperation, not exactly the technology transfer, but to a certain extent, the North Korea needed a nuclear technology. Then North Korea contacted Pakistan, and there was a rumor that Khan visited North Korea more than 10 times. We don't know why he did it, but obviously there was some cooperation in terms of.
But today, none of that exists, right?
No, I think North Korea has already basic knowledge, and now their level of technology already reached certain level.
But at the same time, when we look at missile technology, of course, a lot of that technology is Russian, Chinese, that has come out to other corporations. So, I mean, obviously, again, on the rumors, but there has been a transfer of technology. We don't know to what extent, we don't know in what areas. But even then, we had a rumor that North Korea was selling technology to Myanmar. So it seems to be a complex web of interaction with a number of states. Or has been. In the case of Myanmar, I think that's probably ended. That relationship that has been halted very abruptly with a new development in Myanmar.
Just for let the audience is, I mean, it's sort of common wisdom that the acts of the North Koreans, whether they shoot a missile or whether they blow up a nuclear bomb of some sort, that they're trying to get the attention of the world community that, hi, it's messy in the Middle East, but we still exist and we are still capable of creating problems. I fail to remember exactly who it was who coined the notion of strategic patience vis-a-vis, from the US side vis-a-vis DPRK. Are the Americans really paying attention to North Korea?
No. It's if you pick the 10 most important issues on the Hill,
Yeah.
foreign policy is not among the 10. And if you start picking which one is the most important in foreign policy, North Korea would probably not end up on the 10 anyway. So there is a lack of interest in Washington regarding this. And from my point of view, strategic patience has been a failure in this regard. Because that has actually allowed North Korea to develop both the nuclear capacity as well as missile capacity. So I think the lack of attention has been problematic, and I think what we need is probably a more stronger joint effort, where we actually engage China. We work with the regional actors in trying to get more effective pressure on North Korea. I mean, the new sanctions that we see in the United States, I'm not sure that they're going to do much. But an implementation of what we already agreed to today would actually come quite far. So, as long as we continue isolating North Korea, as long as we put them in a corner, it suits them in a sense. As long as we don't make that an issue. And we're not going to make it an issue. The only one who actually puts North Korea as an issue is South Korea. South Korea is the only one who takes the North Korean issue very seriously. And for good reasons, of course. Not even in China, North Korea is necessarily that important issue. And the reason is that status quo is actually an acceptable solution for most states, except for South Korea.
Well, I guess you could say if the US doesn't know what it wants to do, put a nice phrase on it like strategic patience.
Looks better than saying that we don't know.
Sounds almost like a strategy.
Sorry, I want to add from North Korean perspective how they look at the US. I think basically North Korea is not interested in Obama government.
Very few people are.
Because I think North Korea also they realized Obama is now quite weak, and his presidency just left only 11 months or roughly 10 months, and election is coming soon. And also I think the real main reason of the nuclear test this time was more related to internal consideration, internal problems, internal issues. Actually, North Korea announced to hold the 7th Party Congressional meeting scheduled in this May. And I think this meeting is very crucial for Kim Jong-un to strengthen his leadership and his power. So I think Kim Jong-un needed something, political propaganda. We are a very strong country. We have nuclear weapons. We can deal with the Obama or the US. So I think instead of economic aid from outside. What Kim Jong-un, the regime needed was political strength to solidarize their people. I think that people sometimes they thought when North Korea announced this Party Congress meeting, probably they would not go any military provocation because they needed outside external economic aid or assistance. But it was wrong actually because it's tricky. For North Korea, as Pyeongjin policy, Pyeongjin means the nuclear development and economic development should go at the same time, which means if North Korea has a very strong nuclear deterrence, then the regime can use the conventional military budget to allocate the other new economic sector. At the same time, they also can use military soldiers, for example, in the construction sectors, so on. So they think Pyeongjin is very useful for their domestic economic development. So I think in North Korean mind, Kim Jong-un's mind, is not willing to discuss with Obama. Just he considered the domestic situation and he needed strong propaganda.
Yes. If I may add to that, the domestic reasons are the fundamental reasons. I think I agree here with absolute. But also we shouldn't we need to remember that the North Koreans actually put a lot of effort into the security situation. They feel threatened by the outside world, right or wrong, that's up for interpretation. But they feel that they are under, it's not only about getting attention, they do feel that they have a security deficit. So the nuclear weapons fill a purpose. I think then, in reality, the nuclear development actually creates more insecurity than security. But that's would be my view. But then this was actually a perfect opportunity for the North Koreans to do nuclear tests, because as Sangsoo is saying, the US is weak at the moment. There's very little interest on this. We have an election coming up, but also China is going through military reforms. China wants no tension at its borders. It was the calculation in Pyongyang was that the outside world wouldn't really react. They wouldn't push this too hard. They calculated the sanctions. I think they miscalculated a few things, but on large they made a very good assessment of the situation, saying we can take these sanctions because it's the domestic gains are higher than the external losses. And to be very honest, they conducted both the nuclear test and a missile test for the price of one sanction. So this was also a fairly well-planned set of tests.
Just one more remarkable question. Every time something happens in North Korea, whether it's a missile test or something else, the explanation for it is that the leader has to strengthen his position. That comes up every time in the news anyway. You would imagine that at one point in time, his position would be stable enough so he wouldn't have to do this to solidify his position. But it seems to me that that's not the perception of him, or so it's a current state of the domestic instability, not in the economic sense, but in the political sense.
I think it's simply what the regime is doing is just they want to become a nuclear power. Actually, after the Leap Days agreement, it was the last negotiation dialogue with the U.S. But so far, after that, without any dialogue, just North Korea continued to develop nuclear power. But I think the economic benefit or economic incentive is not North Korea's interest. More what North Korea wants to have is security guarantee from the U.S., which means they want to maintain the regime, they want to survive. So everything is they put our nuclear because of U.S. hostile policy. So in general, they want to have security guarantee from the U.S., which means they want to sign the peace treaty with the U.S.
Also domestically here we have a situation where Pyongyang is actually very successful from a North Korean point of view. Every time you go to Pyongyang, you see more restaurants open for the local population, better clothing, more energy. In a sense, you see an economic boom going on in Pyongyang, and this cannot be accounted only to Chinese money. There is some sort of success in Myanmar, and this has boosted, I think, the North Korean self-confidence. On the other hand, of course, the difference between Pyongyang and the countryside is tremendously large. But there is a, I think, perception that security now, the economic situation has been, in a sense, dealt with. I would disagree that they've actually done so, but I think the perception is. So now they're moving more into security and security guarantees. And also there's a assumption that once the security situation is managed, more resources can be put into the economic development. So they see this as a win-win situation.
Also, I want to add the current North Korea's economic situation is not too bad, actually. Especially after adopting a certain concept of capitalism. Actually economic reform. They started 2013, but since this, the capitalism concept stimulated people to increase agricultural productions and economic activities, and also. North Korea could diversify its economic pie with other many countries in Southeast Asia, Africa, and Middle East. And which means it's not a big volume like trade with China, but still there is a lot of economic activities, which means North Korea has a channel to earn certain foreign currency. And at the same time, I think exporting their labor to abroad has become quite major, one of major North Korea's income for the regime. But I would say the situation is not too bad for North Korea. They can afford to manage it. So that's why the sanction, I would say, doesn't work quite well.
And if I may continue there, on sanctions actually, this is also what the US now trying to do. What they're trying to do is to establish Iranian-style sanctions, which is targeting secondary actors, which means companies who does business with North Korea can be sanctioned by the US. And of course, this is going to target not only Chinese companies, but also Brazilian, Singaporean, whatever comes up. And in this sanction list that is being implemented as we speak, they're also targeting the workers, the guest workers all around the world. They're also trying to target air courier and communication, airlines, shipping, etc. And of course, this runs directly in contrast to the Chinese interest and a lot of other interests. So the proposed US sanctions will be a huge problem for some of the regional actors, and of course specifically China, and in relations with the United States. That would put more pressure on North Korea, but the question is, will people actually accept unilateral US sanctions? Because I think we have to realize that UN sanctions you're going to see is going to be watered down. It's not going to be much of a strengthening. China has agreed, Russia has agreed, the United States has agreed, but I think the sanctions that we're going to see from the Security Council is a set of sanctions that nobody is satisfied with and will have minor impact on North Korea. And the United States can sanction North Korea as much as they like, because they don't have any business interest in North Korea. So it's not going to help, the simple reality. Kaesong was, and I think that was an extremely strong message to North Korea. When the South Koreans now shut down Kaesong, that was a message that really surprised the North Koreans.
So the most recent rumors from the Korean Peninsula about terrorist attacks and so forth, is that a reaction to the closing down of Kaesong?
The North Koreans came out and said that closing down of Kaesong was an act of war.
Yeah.
So I think we also have to be realistic about what the language used from the North Korean side tend to be very colorful.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't necessarily read it as they say it, but rather, but yes, I mean, this has increased tension between North and South Korea immensely. But on the other side, what could South Korea do? This was one of the strongest signals they could say, and it really showed the South Korean government really showed both the North Korean as well as the South Korean people that we're taking this extremely serious. We're bringing up the big guns. The big guns here is Kaesong.
All right, just a reflection on colorful language. We know what Donald Trump will do vis-a-vis Mexico, Daesh, China, and Russia. I don't think he has told us what he will do with North Korea, has he?
Well, he said that it was China's business, and he would pressure China to deal with North Korea.
Okay.
So he is under the assumption that China can actually force North Korea into obedience. And I think that this is actually...
Very many believe that.
Very many believe that. And I think that's exaggerating China's influence over North Korea. China can do a number of things, but they have a limitation how much they can do. And then there's also a thing that if China goes over the edge and pushes them too hard, they're going to suffer from the destabilization, which could work in favor of the United States and against China's interests. So this is also a thing that China needs to consider. It's if they don't push, they're going to suffer from the geopolitical tension, they're going to suffer from increased missile defense in South Korea, most likely, etc. And if they push, they're going to suffer from refugees and destabilization. So whatever China does, it's going to end up in a losing end. So people in Beijing are probably the most upset and furious people right now in the Korean action. China, this is running very much against the Chinese interests.
Yes, first I want to add Kaesong very briefly. And Kaesong, actually, I think the main reason of closing Kaesong was the South Korean government think South Korea's payment to Kaesong. Government said 70% of South Korean payment to Kaesong to be used in North Korea's missile and nuclear program. So mainly that's the squeeze the regime's economy. That was the main reason they shut down the Kaesong. And when it comes to the Chinese position, I think in the future maybe we will see more the confrontational situation in Northeast Asia led by the US and China to a certain extent. Maybe some sort of a new Cold War picture between China, Russia, North Korea on one hand, and the other hand, South Korea, Japan, and the US. Actually, basically, I think the biggest change after the test is the Sino-South Korean relations are now cooling down. And South Korea is more close to US and more strengthens their military cooperation among US, Japan, and South Korea. As Dr. Niklas also mentioned, China in this sense could be biggest loser because before this test, actually South Korea and Chinese relations was quite good. Especially after the Xi Jinping and Park Geun-hye became their leader, they met 6 times each other, and they made the two-country relations the best ever. But actually, after the test, Park Geun-hye is so disappointed. Xi Jinping refused her call, and what South Korea expected was China would support South Korea's view on South Korea's nuclear policy and, of course, the unification policy. But South Korea realized actually China is not ready to abandon North Korea. And also South Korea, when they started discussing about the deployment of THAAD with US, it seems China is more angry about South Korea than North Korea now. And there is a lot of argument and debate in South Korea if THAAD system would be really useful for South Korea to defend North Korea's missile attack. Because many people said the THAAD is designed to only shoot down the missile from North Korea 40 kilometers, from 40 kilometers to 140 kilometers. As we call it, is middle-range missile. But if North Korea fires short-range missile, it's out of control. THAAD cannot target, shoot down the short-range missile. And even middle-range missile, if North Korea launch in a very high angle, and then it's out of range of THAAD. So many South Korean experts said it is not useful, but rather it's useful for the US because it's obviously THAAD is a terminal altitude area defense, which means the North Korea missile, when it is going down, and the THAAD can shoot down. So if U.S. missile defense system or THAAD can fire from Alaska or Hawaii, then it's more high possibility to defend North Korea's missiles. And another argument is THAAD will just only bring military tension in Northeast Asia, and even it could bring an arms race between all Northeast Asian countries. And China is very sensitive to THAAD because, as we know, the THAAD radar system, X-band, can cover 2,000 kilometers, which means can cover most part of China. And then if THAAD installed, and China should change their military budget and military system and missile defense system, all kinds of things. So it's definitely very harmful for future Chinese military plan. That's why they are so sensitive.
Thank you.